Thank you. Yes, Katie Davis from The Sun. How much of a threat does the Iranian regime pose in its current wounded state? Could we see them perhaps deploy a dirty bomb or even a hastily constructed nuclear weapon?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the first part. Could you repeat your question, please?
So my question is, how much of a danger does the Iranian regime pose right now in its current wounded state? Could we see them perhaps deploy a dirty bomb or a hastily constructed nuclear weapon?
Well, as far as the existing infrastructure that the regime has had, clearly has been severely damaged or curtailed. But as I explained in my speech, just because you have struck the key areas of development or enrichment doesn't mean that the nuclear threat is gone. As I said, they can go and purchase it from the North Koreans, for example. The point is that the finger on the trigger is ultimately the menace. That as long as this regime continues to exist, we should not fall under the false premise that because we've hit or neutralized the nuclear enrichment plants or what have you, the threat is gone. For a while it may be. For a while it might have delayed it. But as long as this regime continues to exist, like a bad weed, it will keep popping up in your backyard. We need to make sure that it is completely eradicated. That's the ultimate guarantee, which is why now that we have this opportunity, now that the regime has been severely emasculated, if I could call it that, when the key instrument of repression and control and surveillance or whatever it is that a totalitarian regime utilizes against its own citizenry and as a menace to the world that is on the verge of collapse, recognize that this is a perfect window. Because I always said we should not jump to the conclusion that because diplomacy has failed, then we have to engage in conflict. I've always argued in all these years, many of you have heard me say that, why not the third way, which means the Iranian people are your alternative? You're not only limited to say, because we can't talk sense to them, we have to go and bomb the hell out of them. This is an opportunity to recognize that the regime is so weakened. Let's make the people of Iran the ultimate guarantee by investing on them, rather than hoping that through negotiations you can come to terms with a regime that it is in its DNA simply cannot comply with your expectation. We need to gravitate and have a shift of vision and strategy on that, and that's exactly what I begin to detect. I begin to detect more and more coming from governments that until now were just stuck on that status quo, and that are thinking finally that things can change. We have to be able to anticipate a change in Iran, and what do we need to do for that? That's, I think, for me, a